Hello, everyone, and welcome to Really Old Movies. I'm your host, Harrison Scullin, and today I'll be discussing The Shanghai Gesture from 1941, starring Victor Mature, Gene Tierney, and Walter Houston. All right, so before I get into the review itself, the reason why I picked this film a couple of years back at the Arthur Lyons Film Noir Festival, I picked this film as one of the ones to watch at the event, but I was unable to attend it, so I never got to see it while it was at that festival. So ever since then, I've been trying to see this film, and this is why I picked it because it's a film noir and it's one I've wanted to check out. And so now let's get into the review. So the critic list description: a gambling queen uses blackmail to stop a British financier from closing her Chinese clip joint. All right, so now let's get into my thoughts on the plot. Okay, so the plot, I gave it a 3 out of 5. Um, as excited as I was to watch it, I felt that the story started out really, really strong. I was really, interested in it. I was really intrigued by the characters, especially at the casino at the very beginning of the film, or I guess Chinese clip joint, as they call it. Um, but to me, it kind of loses steam and then kind of meanders into a melodrama about the true parentage of Gene Tierney's character. And to me, I kind of liked more of the other side of it, of the financial people kind of fighting with, uh, oh, what's her name? With Una Munson's character. I would have much preferred more with that, but we didn't get as much with that. So I was a little disappointed with that. And so because of that, I gave it a 3 out of 5. All right, let's move on to the acting. So the acting, I also gave a 3. I thought it was really good from Gene Tierney and Ona Munson. Or is it Una Munson? Ona Munson. Um, I thought they were great. I usually like Walter Houston. I really like him in Dodsworth in and then there were none. Those are two great films with him. I felt he was a bit miscast here because when I think of him, I think of more like, I don't know, American Hero. Like in well, he played Abraham Lincoln once, right? So I think of more of that kind of character. And I guess it's not too dissimilar from Dodsworth. I just, for some reason, felt like he was miscast here. And I hate to say it too, because the Film Noir Festival had Victor Mature's, I think it was his daughter or maybe one of his wives. I can't remember, but one of his relatives was there nevertheless, kind of promoting the film, talking about the film. I also felt Victor Mature was miscast. There was just something about, maybe it was his accent, I don't know, but I just didn't connect with him very well. I really think the best is really from Gene Tierney and Ona Munson. I think they're the best in the whole film. Everybody else just feels a bit miscast. And like I said, it feels a little melodramatic by the end of the film, which is fine sometimes. I just felt that the focus really should have been on, um, the gambling, the swindling, all of that side of it, not necessarily the parentage. So that's why I gave the acting a 3 out of 5. All right, let's move on to the set design. I love the set in that's set in China in the I call it a casino, but they call it clip joint, right? I thought it looked really, really cool. Everything else though feels pretty forgettable. A lot of the film is spent in different different rooms, different almost like uh almost like conference rooms. But in one of them, it was the Una Munza's. I can't remember her character's name, but she was the Chinese lady. Her room had like windows, and they opened it up, and there's people floating up and in chains in like cages and stuff because it was like the Chinese New Year or whatever. Maybe they weren't floating. I think they were just hanging there, but still, like that was kind of cool. The best set, in my opinion, though, is the casino one. I think that's coolest one. It had cool backdrops, cool setup, and they fit a lot of people into it, so that was really cool as well. I wonder if it was a real place, or at the very least, they had a really big stage that they made it on. So that's why I gave it a 4 out of 5. Okay, for cinematography, I also gave it a 4 out of 5. I thought it had some really good close ups. They're very noir. Um, Now, I did mention it is mostly in one room locations or in one room. There's no real outdoor location per se. Uh, it feels pretty much like a stage play, and if I recall correctly, it was a stage play that was attempted like 30 some odd times. Uh, Cecil B. DeMille was attached at one point to adapt it, so for sure they stuck to the roots of that. Um, I just would have preferred a little bit more. Didn't have to be a real place, but more outdoor looking locations. We spent a lot of time indoors in not super interesting rooms. The ones that were in China for the most part look cool, but some of the other scenes not as much. So that's what gave it a 4 out of 5. Okay, the music 3 out of 5. It's just generic. There isn't a whole lot of music in the film. It's pretty much just dialogue driven, dialogue heavy. Like I said, it is based off of a stage play. Um, so it's not super memorable. It's pretty forgettable. That's why I gave it 3 out of 5. Okay, so there it is. Okay, so uh, that brings my total score to a 3.4 out of 5, which I'm rounding to a 3 out of 5, and that's a 68% on Criticless. Now, let me break down my Criticless score. Graphic language, none. There isn't any. Violence, there's a little bit, some shooting and characters dying and whatnot, but no blood or anything like that. Nudity, sexual content, some low cut dresses, but nothing explicit, nothing like that. Political bias, none. Family friendly? I would say yes. I think kids wouldn't be very interested though. There's not a whole lot that goes on. It's a lot of dialogue, a lot of exposition and whatnot. Typically, kids aren't super interested in that. Maybe teenage. Um, Entertainment value, I will say it was very fun at the beginning, but it kind of dragged and became pretty boring by the end of it. I was pretty disappointed with that. So overall, would I recommend this movie? Nah, I would stick to other film noir. As excited as I was to watch it, I was pretty let down with it. This is definitely the early stages of noir. It's always debated whether or not it's a genre or not. I personally think it developed into one later on, but this is a very, very early example of it. I would say if you want to see a quintessential, very early version of noir, I would stick to something like Maltese Falcon, High Sierra, um, movies like that near the early 1940s. And then if you really want to get into where noirs developed, obviously check out films later on in like the 50s and whatnot. But yeah, I don't think this is a great example of noir. This is more of a melodrama than anything. And so, yeah, because of all of that, I do not recommend this movie. All right, well, those are my thoughts overall on the Shanghai Gesture from 1941, and that concludes today's movie review.